Rachel, and today we are talking about this Brandon Sanderson article that came out and his response, and also talking about like what is in this article versus like the actual issues people have with Brandon Sanderson, because the issues in this article are not issues. I don't understand what is going on with this guy. Side note, I did actually start to film this video. You will see my makeup change. I started to film this video and then my phone died, so I didn't get to finish it. So you will see me in two different versions of myself today. I have not finished the article. My phone died and then I decided I would come back and film the rest of it. So I have not finished the article, nor have I read Brandon Sanderson's response. So I'm still going to be reading the rest of it and reacting today. My initial thoughts so far have been that this has just been a very odd article full of like very non-issues, and so far the actual problems people have with Brandon Sanderson have not been brought up. The guy is just annoyed by Brandon Sanderson being boring. I don't get it. And again, Brandon does have some weird stuff in his past, and we will go over that later after I finish reading the article, but it seems like the guy who wrote this is just more worried about Brandon being like cringy, and then ignores the fact, including ignoring that Brandon asked him not to talk about his actual personal medical information, and ignores the fact that maybe Brandon just doesn't want his life outside of his books on the internet for the public to consume, because maybe Brandon is concerned about privacy and safety. Speaking of being cringy and also worrying about privacy and safety, here's the part of the video where I talk about today's sponsor, which is Atlas VPN. If you are like Brandon Sanderson, seemingly, assumedly, or you're like me, you probably are concerned about privacy, and that includes internet safety and privacy. Keeping yourself safe while browsing the web. The folks over at Atlas VPN have partnered with me today to sponsor this video and give you a link, which is in my description, that you can use, and in no time at all, like seriously, very fast, which is great for those of us who are not so good at setting things up, which is me. In no time at all, you can have the most affordable online protection at $1.83 a month, plus 3 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. What's great about using Atlas VPN is if you are in an area that is region locked and you're getting locked out from watching your favorite shows, like on Netflix, which isn't very cash money of you, Netflix, you can simply with a few clicks tell the VPN that you want to be from Canada, and suddenly the tyrannical overlords over at Netflix will be like, on your way, you maple syrup lover, you are now allowed to access Parks and Recreation, and then you can binge watch Parks and Recreation over and over and over, just like Lil Sebastian would want. It's me, I'm using Atlas VPN to binge watch Parks and Rec. And if you, like me, have 1,000,000 devices in your home, including the computer that I'm editing this video on, if you have 1,000,000 devices in your home because you, like me, are a captive to technology, a willing captive, never fear, because Atlas VPN protects all your devices on a single subscription. You do not have to get a different subscription for all your devices. You are covered, all your stuff covered. Having Atlas VPN also means stopping ads and malware from accessing all those devices on your phone and your iPad and your MacBook and your desktop and your tablets that you bought for your kids, while also keeping your Google searches private, and again getting you access to all that sweet, sweet region locked content. And check out the link in the description and the pinned comment down below to grab Atlas VPN for yourself at $1.83 a month plus 3 months extra, and again there is a 30-day money-back guarantee, so go check it out down below. And thank y'all over at Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. So all I know, I'm reacting to this live, all I know currently is that somebody who has pissed off the book community, even people who don't love Brandon Sanderson, are like, this article is shitty. And I have heard like bits, but I haven't read it. So I'm gonna live react to you, and if you haven't read it, then I will read it for you. It's called Brandon Sanderson is Your God by Jason Keehee. He's the biggest fantasy writer in the world. He's also very Mormon. These things are profoundly related. You better have a damn good case. Most years, Brandon Sanderson makes about $10 million. Damn! Last year he made $55 million. This is obviously a lot of money for anyone. For a young adult, for a writer of young adult-ish, what? Never-ending, speed-written fantasy books, it's huge. Okay, just because they are speed-written, in this case, to me, does not really mean anything, because Brandon Sanderson has been writing for a long time, and just like with Stephen King, like it doesn't shock me if he writes a book very quickly, or like somebody like, I don't know, Ruth Ware or Nora Roberts. It doesn't surprise me because they've been doing it for a long time, and it also wouldn't surprise me if like some of these people had ghostwriters. So I don't think Brandon Sanderson has a ghostwriter, but I'm just saying, I don't think that really means anything. By Sanderson's estimation, he's the highest selling author of epic fantasy in the world. That would make sense considering he's also written like not only his own Mistborn stuff, but also like the Wheel of Time stuff. On the day of his record-breaking Kickstarter campaign, 42 million of that 55 million, I came to the Wired offices ready to gossip. How'd he do it? Why now? Is Brandon Sanderson even a good writer? Nobody had the first clue who or what I was talking about. I actually asked my sister, do you know who Brandon Sanderson is? She reads, but she doesn't read any fantasy books, and she said no. So I think that for people who dabble a little bit in fantasy, particularly men, they're gonna know who Brandon Sanderson is. But like if you don't read, if you're just like a lit-fic reader, then yeah, of course you're not gonna know who that is. On the one hand, who cares? Sanderson has millions upon millions of fans all over the planet. It doesn't matter that some losers at a single magazine, even if it is one of the nerdier ones. Is Wired a nerdy magazine? I don't know anything about magazines, to be honest. I know as much about magazines as this guy's coworkers know about Brandon Sanderson. On the other hand, the ignorance goes beyond Wired. As far as I can tell, Sanderson, who has been topping bestseller lists for the better part of the 21st century, has not been written about in any depth by any major publication ever. I called his publicist to confirm this. Well, we have a piece coming up in Latter-day Saints Living, he told me. It's a magazine for Mormons, which makes sense. Sanderson is extremely Mormon. I don't know anything about Mormonism really. I grew up in Fundyland in evangelical Christian fundamentalism, so everything that I know about Mormons is from that, which is all probably non-truths. I was told that they're a cult, but that might be true. I don't know. I don't really know anything about Mormons. I know that they have a lot of similarities to fundies in like belief and stuff and conservatism, and the only thing that I really know about Mormons is that they are anti-porn and that they created that whole fight the nude drug thing, and that's the only time when fundies and Mormons agree on anything, is being anti-porn. What makes less sense here is why there's a hole the size of Utah where the man's literary reputation should be. Is it because he writes mostly fantasy, so the snobs sneer, a sub-literary genre, but then so do J.K. Rowling, Margaret Atwood, and George R.R. Martin and their household names. But isn't George R.R. Martin only a household name now because of the TV show? Like before Game of Thrones came out, I didn't know about George R.R. Martin. And again, Margaret Atwood and J.K. Rowling all have wildly popular adaptations of their works. And before The Handmaid's Tale, I don't know that I knew of Margaret Atwood. I mean, I knew J.K. Rowling, but that's because her popularity sort of transcends. Is it because none of Sanderson's work has been adapted for the screen? Well, he wrote 3 of the Wheel of Time books. Yeah, but he's not the original creator of the Wheel of Time books. Like, if you ask any fantasy reader, hey, who wrote Wheel of Time, they're gonna say Robert Jordan. And an adaptation of that series came out on Amazon Prime. Could it be finally because he's a weirdo Mormon? Okay. Now, see, you don't have to call him a weirdo Mormon. That feels a little icky. But so are Orson Scott Card, Glenn A. Larson, and Stephanie Meyer. Mormon, I mean. Only Orson Scott Card is a weirdo. Sanderson, when I eventually meet him in person, makes versions of these excuses plus others for his writerly obscurity. It's kind of fun to talk about until it isn't, and that's when I realize in panic that I now have a problem. Sanderson is excited to talk about his reputation. He's excited really to talk about anything, but none of his self-analysis is, for my purposes, exciting. What? Wait, is this guy just mad because he thinks that Brandon Sanderson is a boring person? Is that it? What the fuck? In fact, at that first dinner over Flopsy Utah Chinese, this being days before I'd meet his extended family. You met his extended family and you wrote this about him? What's wrong with you? I'd meet his extended family and attend his fan convention and take his son to a theme park and cry in his basement? I find Sanderson depressingly story-killingly lame. Sir, I would like to speak to your mother. This is ridiculous. This is just people. I would never do this. Like, I do authors behaving badly. I would never do this. Like, Brandon didn't do anything wrong. He was just boring and you're being this big of a dick to him. Like, if Brandon had called this guy like a snot-nosed, I don't know, slur of some sort, then sure, I could see him being like, oh, he's so boring, I can't stand him. But you took his son to a theme park, he had you over his home, he fed you dinner, and you're being this mean? He sits across from me in an empty restaurant, kind of lording lordly and sure of his insights in a graphic TV shirt and ill-fitting blazer, which he says he wears because it makes him look professional. It doesn't. He isn't, unless the word means only believing everything you say is worth saying. Sanderson talks a lot, but almost none of it is usable, quotable. I begin to think this is what I drove all the way from San Francisco to the suburbs of Salt Lake City in the freezing cold dead of winter for previously frozen dim sum and freeze-dried conversation. This must be why nobody writes about Brandon Sanderson. I am speechless. So I say, maybe nobody writes about you because you don't write very well. The world unfreezes, he agrees. It's not that Brandon Sanderson can't write, it's more that he can't not write. Graphomania is the name of the condition, the constant compulsion to get words out down as much and as quickly as possible. The concept of a vacation confuses Sanderson, he once said, because for him the perfect vacation is more time to write. Vocation as vacation. His schedule is budgeted down to the minute. He wakes up at 1 p.m., exercises, writes for 4 hours, break for the wife and kid, writes for 4 and more. He plays video games or whatever until 5 a.m. Good for him. Damn. Okay, if this is boring, then I'm boring. And you know what? All of us are a little boring. Probably. Like, why? This is so funny. Like, how dare this normal ass human not be the Elon Musk of writing? How dare he not be planning space excursions? How dare he have a wife and kids who he takes to theme parks, eat Chinese food, and play video games? Oh no! Normal people can also make a lot of money writing. Like, I would guess that George R. R. Martin is a pretty normal person. I would guess that, God, I don't even want to make this argument. I would guess that J.K. Rowling, when she's not trolling the internet looking to pick on trans people, I would guess that she is pretty fucking boring. I would guess that. I think that all of us are pretty fucking boring. Like, by what metric are we measuring, like, what's exciting and what's not? I don't understand. In the 5 months or so it has taken me to sit down and write this magazine story, which is 4,000 words long, Sanderson has published 2 books. He wrote 7 during the COVID lockdown. He did the Kickstarter. Exactitude is pointless here, as the major books are all set in the same universe, which Sanderson calls the Cosmere, but they're all meant to blur together. Sanderson makes about half his money selling books through traditional publishers, and the other half he makes selling, among other things, leather-bound special editions through his company Dragonsteel. Okay, Sanderson is just a really nerdy guy who makes a lot of money making books that a lot of people really enjoy. Like, I read I think 1 chapter of the first book in the Cosmere, and I was like, I'm gonna put this down and try again later, and I still haven't. I have read 2 of his sci-fi series, Skyward and Starsight, and I quite enjoyed them. Like, they're not my favorite things ever, but I quite enjoyed them, and I'll continue on. It's not my favorite writer ever, but like, I don't think he deserves this amount of vitriol when he hasn't done anything wrong except be boring. Like, if that's a crime, then this guy might want to write about me next. Most will hear this and think, at that rate, none of his words could possibly be any good. They'd be right, in a way, and that's what Sanderson agrees with. At the sentence level, he has no gift to English prose. That sounds pretty humble to me. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Am I in the Twilight Zone? Is this a prank? The early books especially, my god. It was going to be very bad this time. Okay, without context, I'm not really understanding what the problem is with that sentence. She felt a feeling of dread. Okay, like, sure, it's like it's a little redundant, but like, I've read so much worse. A city is tranquil, quiet, peaceful. Again, I've read so much worse than this, so this is like nothing to me. Many things from buildings to beasts are enormous. Dark places, more thesaurically, are called colliginous? I don't even know what that means. On almost every page of Mistborn, his first and probably most beloved series, a character sighs, frowns, raises an eyebrow, cocks a head, blah blah blah. Sometimes at the same time, sometimes multiple times a page. I mean, yeah, that's stuff I would make fun of, but like, I would also note that in a debut it kind of makes sense. He says, I have trouble with metaphors, I detest rewriting, I write for endings, I write to relax. It shows he writes by 1 metric at a 6th grade reading level. What metric? Is he gonna, by what metric? It doesn't say. Wait, was that a joke? Was he just being sarcastic? What? Wait, sir, this is so disingenuous. Here's where I'll stop using Sanderson's words, written or spoken, against him. It's not fair. He's simply not, I'll say it again, very quotable. I spent days with the man. I watched his YouTube videos, made a dent in his podcast empire, most of it incredibly about writing. Here's the thing is, this guy must be new to... He must be new in general, because this is, if he had, see, because I do authors behaving badly, I'm so intimately familiar with author behavior and how authors talk about themselves, and this is one of the most humble, people so far from what he stated. Like, Sanderson knows where he has trouble. He says, you're right, I'm not great with prose. I don't like rewriting. I write for endings. I write to relax, and I have trouble with metaphors. But the way that this is coming off is as if he like knows that those are things that he needs to work on, but also like because he's written so many books, it seems like his readership is not really going to care. So in a similar way to like how Sarah J Maas doesn't need to get better money-wise, she can just do what she loves and make money off of it, Brandon Sanderson's on the same path. So like welcome to finding a huge writer who knows they have issues, but also like they made a career and they don't have to get better. Like, at least he knows, at least he's self-aware. I typed some 40 pages of notes for this story, and who knows how many pages of transcripts when the AI sped out. Now that I'm writing, I find I'm referring to none of it. Possibly this is the influence of Sanderson himself because he has graphomania. The story has an ending, I promise, and I'm sprinting towards it as if to a vacation. Like the best of Sanderson's endings, my ending should surprise you. Was that a compliment? I can't tell. Because you see, Sanderson actually did say one thing to me, one miraculous thing that stuck, and that I remember these 5 months later with perfect clarity. Just 7 words, but true ones. You're not ready for them just yet. You need more story first. For now, there's only Sanderson, both wordful and wordless. Okay, now you're overwriting. He talks about going to Dragonsteel 2022, which is a convention at Salt Lake City Convention Center. Says 7,000 people are expected for Dragonsteel 2023, and in 2024, Sanderson is going to release book 5 of 10 of the Stormlight Archives. Wow, Jesus. It has a picture that says, a proud nerd, Sanderson has piles of Magic the Gathering cards strewn throughout his house. This does not surprise me at all. Like, if you were to ask me, what author do you think has a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards strewn about their house, I would immediately say, without hesitation, Brandon Sanderson. And I do not mean that in the derogatory. Like, it just seems factual to me. Like, the dude seems super nerdy. That's why he relates with other nerdy dudes, and that's why they love his books so much. Like, and nothing against that. Like, I'm just saying that, like, that's just a fact. I'm just not sure why it's in here. Like, relevance? What point are we making? Objection, relevance? For now, the fans are inconquerable spirits. The women, fewer in number, tend to be the better cosplayers. Hell yeah, I love women. I talk to as many of the fans as I can. A teenage girl says, I'm here because I'm basically a huge nerd. Everyone's smiling. One guy says he spent $170 on a rubber sword. I see a young couple with young kids. I ask, are you trying to indoctrinate them into this fantasy land? And the dad says, trying to. Funny story, I was at an indoor playground with my kids and I heard somebody, what is that character's name? Kaladin, I think? I heard the dad yell, Kaladin! And I was like, ah, Brando Sando fan. He goes, yeah. I was like, cool, I've only read Starsight. I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have brought this up. The one question I ask practically everyone is, why Sanderson? I need to ask it a few times to realize the answer is always the same. Sanderson's characters, they feel like real people. Oh, it is Kaladin. It just brought up Kaladin. I've done some things I'm not proud of, one man tells me. Then he read and now reformed, he has a 2-year-old son named Kaladin. I wonder if this is the dude that I met! Actually, no, there's probably a lot of them out there. Speaking of 2-year-olds, this is my 4-year-old. Yes? Oh, it's my 6-year-old. How can I help you? What's up?
Iris said said he loves me.
Oh, that's very sweet. Did you tell her that you love her too? Go tell her you love her. Because he looks... No, you just tell her you love her because you think that she's fun to hang out with. Don't talk about, like... I mean, you can tell her she looks wonderful if you want to, but like also say, I think you're super fun to hang out with. I think you're smart. I think you're very kind.
What?
Tell her you think she's kind.
Okay.
Okay, I love you. Sorry. Iris's mom, if you're watching this, your kids are the best. What nobody, not a single person complains about in my 2 days walking the palace floors is Sanderson's writing. If they mention his sentences at all, it's merely to acknowledge that they're easier to read than, say, Tolkien's, whose work they may well graduate to with Sanderson lighting the way. Huh? Graduate to? Huh? It's becoming very clear what Jason's thought process is. Sanderson himself admits he was late to Tolkien, in whose shadow he now happily lives, even as he tries to write beyond it. Surely he's not a great writer, I prod. Polite, embarrassed smiles. They're suspicious of me, I can tell. Yeah, if they didn't think he was a great writer, why would they be there? That's like me going to a Sarah J Maas convention and being like, she's not a great writer though, right? And them all being like, the fuck are you doing here? Why would, of course they paid a bunch of money to be there. Of course they think it is their subjective opinion that he writes quite well. That's why they're naming their sons after him. That's why they're paying all this money to go to conventions. You're asking the wrong people. But what am I saying? Gibberish, most likely, and hypocrisies. Sanderson is a bad writer. I've already said it. Here at the convention, most of the panelists aren't even writers. People don't care about sentences. They care about Sanderson. Oh, of course, it's a Sanderson convention, not a writing convention. Why didn't you go to a writing convention? I'm so confused by this. I feel like I'm in a fever dream. Like, so much of this feels like common sense to me. I sit through multiple panels about the future of his publishing company. Why would there be writers on the panel of his publishing company? If they're talking about Brandon Sanderson, why would he need other? Which is called Dragonsteel. No, I don't want to sign up for Wired. Thank you. Post Kickstarter campaign, the company is now 50-some people / Mormons strong. Are they actually? Like, I don't know if you're being facetious or not. Are they actually all Mormons? And like, if it's in Utah, I'm not shocked because Utah is like just chock full of Mormons. So I don't know like what you're insinuating here. Now they're talking about warehouse expansion efforts. When will the Dragonsteel amusement park be built? Someone asked. The audience hoots. All of this, I think to myself, is not the spirit of fantasy. If it's world building one thing, the world builder's world. Okay. And like, what do you call like Star Wars Land and Disney World and Harry Potter world? What's the difference? Of course it's the world builder's world. Hello? I pull up to Sanderson's Built World, his home, a gated community of American Fork, Utah. There are 3 properties, blah blah blah. His 3 boys play. He stays in the Elantris suite. It has cover art from the book on the walls. The world's best shower. Sanderson's assistant is his wife's sister. His doppelganger brother he meets multiple siblings-in-law, neighbors, people's children, friends. Sanderson formed a writing group with almost 30 years ago. This would be so awesome for a fan. Are you kidding me? This is so sad that this guy who like was adamant about not enjoying this did this. I guess Sanderson doesn't have the ability to feel pain or something. Oh my god. Dragonsteel's new head of narrative lets slip that Sanderson feels no pain. It's true, Sanderson's sister-in-law said. Even though he writes for 8 hours a day on a couch, he has no backaches. The hottest of hot sauces cause scarcely a sweat. At the dentist, he refuses Novocaine for fillings. When I ask later for him to confirm this, he does, but asks if I really have to print it. I'm sorry, I say, I really do. You're not sorry? What's wrong with you? Why would you give out this guy's medical information? Oh man, this just got like so uncomfortable. He says that he writes to feel human. They go to a theme park called Evermore, which is very Sanderson. You go on quests. Down in Sanderson's below ground movie theater in plush red leather seats that not only recline but have adjustable headrests. He wants to show the specs off, so he plays the opening scene of Greatest Showman. I don't tell him that while I like musicals, I hate The Greatest Showman, especially Hugh Jackman. Okay, this man is a criminal. This man is a criminal. I don't need any further explanation. This simply means that this man just hates joy. He hates to feel happiness, and he sees Brandon Sanderson feeling happy and not having backaches, and he's like, I hate this guy. Fuck this dude. I'm writing a terrible piece about him. When lame Hugh opens his mouth to sing I Can't Help It, I burst into tears. What's happening to me? This story isn't coming together. To my mind, I still haven't gotten anything real from Sanderson. I'm not the first person he's oh, my phone just died. Okay, continuing on. I don't remember exactly where I left off, but I'm trying to stitch this together for you. What's happening to me? This story isn't coming together. I have some ideas on why it's not coming together, my guy. To my mind, I still haven't gotten anything real from Sanderson, anything true. I think you have gotten plenty that's true. I think you just didn't get the story that you were hoping to get, and also you find him cringy, which like, you're allowed to find people cringy, just like some people think that cilantro tastes like soap and some people think it tastes delicious. Like, some people are not for other people who just don't interact well, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean that like that's like an objective truth. Cilantro does not taste like soap for everyone, just for some. And again, I'm not even a huge like Sanderson fan. Like, this is weird to me. I'm not the first person he has toured around his lair to politely gawk at his treasures and trophies and his hallway of custom stained glass renditions of his favorite books, Tolkien, Harry Potter, the Belgariad. I'm certainly not the first person he has told about one favorite book in particular, Barbara Hambly's Dragon's Bane. I've never heard of this. Is this a thing I missed out because I grew up in Fundyland? An English teacher put this in his hands when he was 14, probably the day he became a fantasy writer. That feels like an unnecessary jab. Or how he first got published, or about the phone call he got from Robert Jordan's widow asking if he might finish the Wheel of Time series. These stories are all over the internet, on his website and many others. Sanderson has lived so much of his life and fame openly, self-promotionally. I mean, yeah, as much as he's willing to, and like, good for him. I'm failing to see what your problem is with him. Like, I'm really not getting it. It's a major reason for his success. One woman I talked to at a con made sure to tell me which of Sanderson's pets was her favorite. It's Jello the parrot. I talk about, like, in my Discord, most of my patrons know what my cats' names are. We have a whole pets channel. Like, this is really like normal information that people who like create a following talk about, like names of pets and stuff. I think you just don't like him, and like, that's fine, but like, why are you being so weird about it? As I recover from Hugh in 4D, I am sick of the Hugh Jackman slander, I will tell you what. Sanderson collects his 15-year-old and we all drive to dinner. This time the food is better, Utah Japanese. Sanderson and I order ramen, he salts his, then I watch his son salt his yakisoba. I could cry again. Stop. Instead, I asked Sanderson if he's ever so moved by a scene he writes that he cries. Sometimes, he says, though it might not be the scenes people expect. He can't say more, but it's something. This conversation from 5 months ago I recall fairly clearly. We're heading towards something now, some kind of admission. I can feel it. When Mormons ask God for a sign, they speak of a burning in the bosom. They do? Man, my knowledge about Mormons is like very low. Say you're a kid wondering if you should be a fantasy writer when you grow up. You might ask God what he thinks. If there's a burning in your bosom, that's probably a yes. So I pressed Sanderson on the moments he has felt the burning. He says they're too intimate, too special to talk about. That's fine. Then let's talk about Mormonism in another way. Why do you want to know about his Mormonism so bad? Like, you know what Mormons believe. Like, he's said stuff on the internet connected to his beliefs. Like, I'm trying to understand what this writer's doing. Like, what are you getting at? Let's talk about it as it relates to fantasy, because it's no secret. Mormonism is the fantasy of religion. Incorrect. You are false. You are wrong. That is wrong. The fantasy of religion is Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard was a science fiction writer who later went on to become a cult leader. What are you talking about? Mormon is the science fiction edition of Christianity. I mean, maybe, but Scientology is the fantasy of religion. Let's be absolutely clear here. They believe that they are like alien souls trapped in human flesh vessels. And you're calling Mormonism the fantasy religion? Did you look into any other religions, or do you just like not like Mormons for some reason? I've heard it called, with its angels and alternative histories, embodied gods, visions, and plates made of gold. I mean, a lot of that is stuff that I experienced in Assemblies of God churches. What's the difference between Assemblies of God churches and Mormonism besides that guy who wrote that book of Mormon? I feel like you just don't like Mormonism for some reason, but you're not explicitly saying why, so I'm very confused. I asked Sanderson if I've got the ultimate promise of the religion right, the ultimate promise being, as I understand it, that we humans will, if we're good and marry well and memorize the passcodes, eventually pass into the highest kingdom and come into our divine inheritance. We'll become gods in other worlds and get our own planets. Oh, Mormons believe in like getting other planets? All right, they're kind of adjacent to Scientology. Almost. Scientology's still weirder, for sure. Like, I'm sorry. They are the fantasy of religion. Sanderson agrees that that's the gist, and he knows where I'm going. He wants to know if what he's doing, writing fantasy books, is fundamentally, in some way, some very central way, Mormon. Of course it is, he says. The world building, the gods incarnate, the systems of magic, so much of Mormonism is about rules, so are his books, where miracles don't happen unless you put in the work. Then, that's when, between mouthfuls of pork cutlet, Sanderson makes the connection between his work and the work of his heavenly Father explicit. This is when he speaks the 7 words of truth, the ones I'm certain he has never said in quite this way ever before. As I build books, Sanderson says, as I sit there for once entirely enraptured, God builds people. Okay? I was waiting for explosions. Okay. Like, yeah, he's a Christian. Like, he's a Mormon. Mormons are like, I'm not understanding the problem. I'm so confused here. We descend on one final world. After dinner, it's time for Evermore, the rundown theme park. The night is misty and cold, blah, blah, blah. He's complaining about the theme park, says at least the apple cider's good. He gets recognized by everybody. I guess that's inevitable when you go to a fantasy land with a fantasy legend who has literally just purchased $5 million of land across the way for who knows what world building reasons. He purchased $5 million of land? God, imagine having $5 million to just buy empty land with. Good grief. Sanderson's son and I start keeping a silent tally. Every time a new fan walks over, we hold up fingers behind Sanderson's back. We run out of fingers. One girl says she wants to take Sanderson's writing classes at BYU when she grows up. Okay, see, now I'm cringing. Not because of Sanderson and not because of writing classes, but because of Brigham Young University. A surprising number of guys asked for autographs for my girlfriend. I want to clarify that the reason that I don't like Brigham Young University is because of their connection with Fight the New Drug. Brigham Young University has a guy who works for them who is explicitly anti-queer, like explicitly anti-queer, and he also works with Fight the New Drug, yet Fight the New Drug says that they are not connected to the Mormon Church. Okay, and Fight the New Drug is an anti-porn organization that puts out complete misrepresented scientific analysis of how porn affects people and says that porn kills love and all kinds of things. I'm eventually going to redo a video that I did previously on Fight the New Drug, and that's where like mainstream fundy that I grew up in and Mormonism, where they come together for a purpose together to fight the new drug. I don't like BYU for their affiliation with Fight the New Drug and for their having on staff vehemently anti-queer folks. But like, that's the same reason that I don't like Liberty University. So I cringe just as hard at hearing Liberty University as I do at hearing BYU. People ask for photographs, blah, blah, blah. Sanderson shines. He's your god, but he's your friend too. What? He's also unafraid to drop hints about future projects. He does this to me at certain points. Will they ever make a big movie version of one of your books? I ask him in the fairy garden. Sanderson makes meaningful noises. Even though your systems of magic seem unfilmably complex, more meaningful noises. Everything's been optioned, he says, but then things revert and discussions continue. I suspect there will be big announcements soon. There have to be. Sanderson is bigger than ever. A good writer, who knows? What I do know now is this. So many of us mistake sentences for story, but story is the thing. Things happening. Characters changing. Surprise endings. As I drove us back to the house, drop off the kid, and then stay in the car with Sanderson a bit longer, talking about life, talking about words, my ending takes shape. The surprise is that it was Sanderson's ending all along, the ending of his best books. A character becomes a god, and the god beholds his planet now. If Sanderson is a writer, that is all he is doing. He is living his fantasy of godhead on earth. Sir, you are so stupid. This was so stupid. He's like, this man has fans and is a Mormon and therefore he thinks he's a god. How you got from point A to point B is beyond me, but okay. All right. If there's any authors out there who deserve that kind of like scrutiny, who think that they are like above, there's definitely a man who deserves it, and his name is Jay Kristoff. But okay, it's fine. What I think that Sanderson meant by that is like, I am creating worlds and God is creating people. Like it's just about creation. Like you made the flimsiest case for what you're trying to say. It's bad. A lot of writers talk about how they either write their current faith or their former faith into their books. Tons of writers do this. Like, I am not an author, but I have a work in progress, and the main theme I would say is about religion and how that affected my life and how I watch it affect other people's lives. Like, that's very common. It's very helpful for people, whether they are still in whatever faith they're practicing or whether they've left their faith. It's very helpful for people to use fiction to navigate that and to help express things that are just not really able to be expressed when you're just sitting down talking about it. Like, there's something very intricate and complex about using fiction to delve into those themes and those experiences that you have within a faith or when you've left it. So I don't really see the problem, especially when it doesn't seem like at all Sanderson is using his books to do subterfuge and to do any sort of conversion for people. So I don't see what the problem is. Like, I have read books that are actively trying to do conversion, that are doing subterfuge, that are the author using their faith and trying to swindle people into the faith. And that's wrong. And Sanderson, as far as I can tell, does not do that. So what's the problem here? What's the issue? I'm very confused. Sanderson's just a nerd that achieved a lot, and a lot of people really love him. Now, that's not to say that he's never said anything that I take issue with. He has, and let's talk about it. Sanderson's written a lot of blog posts that a lot of us are really uncomfortable with. A lot of us in the queer community, a lot of you who support the queer community. In a post written by Brandon Sanderson in 2007, which he later revised in 2011, he talked about Dumbledore, revealed as queer, and he said, I am a practicing member of the Latter-day Saints, aka Mormon Church. I am upfront about this and feel that it does influence my work and perspective on writing. He's been upfront about this for a long time. So like, I don't know what the author of the article is like getting at. Anyway, if asked to do so, I would vote against legislation that would give an official stamp of approval to gay marriage. This is what I take issue with Brandon Sanderson. The simple reason is this: I honestly and sincerely believe that in voting against such legislation, I would act in the best interests of those who are gay. I reject your paternalistic nonsense, Brandon. I don't want it. You don't need to tell me what to do. You're not acting in my best interest. This is the same thing. This is not new, and this is not like very like particular to Mormons. My own family feels this way, and they're not Mormon, they're evangelicals. And then in 2011 he amended this to say, I have changed my stance on gay marriage somewhat. After a great deal of soul searching and thought and discussion, I now believe that the best way to approach this is to push for all state unions to be civil unions. I believe we should establish what the state grants a union, whether it be straight or gay, and apply those rights universally to all. Marriage, I believe, should become an entirely religious term. No. No, that is Christofascism. You don't get to control the law based on religion. I don't want that. You can keep it. I accept and sustain the leaders of the LDS Church. I believe that a prophet of God has said that widespread legislation to approve gay marriage will bring pain and suffering to all involved. You have been sold a lie, sir. I trust those whom I have accepted as my spiritual leaders. I feel that what they have said is God's will. He also said in 2011, I believe that engaging in homosexual acts is sinful. In 2017, he said, the church's stance on gay marriage is the thing that over the years I've probably had the most struggle with personally. At the same time, I trust the people I've chosen as my spiritual advisors. Well, I don't trust them, and I don't want you or them making laws for me, sir. Another post from 2007 said, how do you feel about gay characters? Have you noticed the lack of prominent gay characters within the epic fantasy as a genre, and do you ever include or will ever include gay or lesbian characters in your own work? And he said, so there are gay characters in my books, though so far they have been side characters. I'm wondering if maybe he's making some steps forward and doesn't want to be like, I don't know if Mormonism is like Jehovah's Witness where they will cast you out, but maybe he doesn't want to be like publicly shamed by the Mormon church and he doesn't want to say. I don't know, but I do know that he said some very troubling things, saying that it's a sin, saying that he would vote against it, saying that he thinks it ends in pain and suffering. That is obviously homophobic and very painful for a queer person to read. So for that reason, he has behaved badly. For all the reasons in the article, no. No, I don't know what that guy is on about. And the fact that he never brings up the queerness is like, hello? Sanderson did respond to the Wired article, and this is why I wish that the guy in the Wired article would have challenged Sanderson on his current views on queerness. That way we could have a conversation about what is actually problematic about Sanderson, rather than like, this author's weird perceptions on him. He's boring. I don't like him. He thinks he's a god. Like, none of that has any foundation. Sanderson posted in the Mistborn subreddit saying, I appreciate the kind words and support. Not sure how or if I should respond to the Wired article. I get that Jason, in writing it, felt incredibly conflicted about the fact that he finds me lame and boring. I'm baffled how he seemed to find every single person on his trip, my friends, my family, my fans, to be worthy of derision. But he also feels sincere in his attempt to understand. While he legitimately seems to dislike me and my writing, I don't think that's why he came to see me. He wasn't looking for a hit piece. He was looking to explore the world through his writing, in that he and I are the same, and I respect him for it, even if much of his tone seems quite dismissive of many people and ideas I care deeply about. The strangest part for me is how Jason says he had trouble finding the real me. He says he wants something true or genuine, but he had the genuine me all that time. He really did. What I said apparently wasn't anything he found useful for writing an article. That doesn't make it not genuine or true. Yeah, I 100% agree with the homophobe, with the at least former homophobe. I fully agree. I don't think Brandon Sanderson did anything wrong as far as Jason reported it, so I don't get it. I am not offended that the true me bores him. Honestly, I'm a guy who enjoys his job, loves his family, and is a little obsessive about his stories. There's no hidden trauma, no skeletons in my closet, just a guy trying to understand the world through story. That is kind of boring from an outsider's perspective. I can see how it is difficult to write an article about me for that reason. But at the same time, I'm worried about the way he treats our entire community. I agree. I don't even think that Sanderson is being like virtue signaling about this. I think that was genuinely concerning. The way that he shat on fantasy readers was like, wow, you really think less of people for not meeting some like not described standard of yours. Like, what is your deal, sir? I understand that he didn't just talk about me, but about you. As has been happening to fantasy fans for years, the general attitude of anyone writing about us is that we should be ashamed for enjoying what we enjoy. In that, the tone feels like it was written during the 80s. Look at these silly nerds liking things. How dare they like things? Don't they know the thing they like is dumb? Yeah, that is how it sounded. As a community, let's take a deep breath. It's all right. I appreciate you standing up for me, but please leave Jason alone. This might feel like an attack on us, on you, but it's not. He wrote what he felt he needed, and as a writer, he is my colleague. Oh, like news article writers and authors feel like they're colleagues? I genuinely did not know that. He should not be attacked for sharing his feelings. If we attack people for doing so, we make the world a worse place because fewer people will be willing to be their authentic selves. People are interesting, every one of them, and being a writer is about finding out why. And says that writing is not merely using words, it's what I aspire to be able to do. People are wonderful, fascinating, brilliant balls of walking contradiction, passion, and beauty. I find it an exciting challenge to make certain that the perspective of the washwoman or the monk sitting and reading a book is as interesting in a story as that of the king or the tech mogul. He then added, I find value in you. Your passion for my work is a big part of why I write. You make my life special. Thank you. I want to make clear that I bear Jason no ill will. I like him. Please leave him alone. He seems to be a sincere man who tried very hard to find a story, discovered that there wasn't one that interested him, then floundered in trying to figure out what he could say to make a deadline. I respect him for trying his best to write what he obviously found a difficult article. He's a person, remember, just like each of us. I really appreciate how Sanderson talked about Jason and how he reiterated multiple times, leave Jason alone, and talked about that, you know, he is a person. And I think that he really nailed it, like what the problem is here. He was trying to find a story, Jason was, and the story that he found simply did not interest Jason, and tried to find out what he could say to make a deadline. But I also think that he was trying to find something that was more like, I hate to say what I do, but was trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. Oh, he's so boring that could he be a god? Like, could he think that he's a, and I'm like, whoa, okay, you have to actually make your case, like, and you didn't. I think that he just found Sanderson incredibly boring and tried to make a mountain out of a molehill because sure, he was on a deadline, but also wanted to get clicks because he, you know, wanted to do his job. And like, as a content creator, I get it, but also if you're gonna make the case that Brandon Sanderson thinks of himself as a god, you better connect point A and point B, because all you said was, he said he writes books like God creates humans and his fans are really into him. He thinks he's a god. Sir, what? Sir, what? You're a poor writer. Like you went on and on about Sanderson being a bad writer. You, sir, wrote a bad article. It's in bad faith. It was poorly done. You did not make your case. You were just like, I think this man is boring. Also, he thinks he's a deity. How did we get here? How did we get here? Would not read a novel written by Jason because I can tell that it would be bad. Anyways, that is what happened. That is sort of how Brandon Sanderson has behaved badly and where he has not behaved badly, which everything in the article is nonsense. I cannot believe that Jason didn't, you got an opportunity to sit in Brandon Sanderson's house and you didn't ask him about his opinions on queerness and dive into, okay, well, how do you, you know, how would you sit down and have a conversation with queer readers of yours? Like, how do you make them feel comfortable even though you've said these things that obviously hurt them? Like, you had an opportunity and you didn't take it. I would have taken it. Like Brandon Sanderson seems like a guy who is just, I mean, I was there once. I believed what my church told me, even though I am a queer person. I was like, oh, it's just the devil. It's just the devil convincing me that I like my sister's hair. The devil's convincing me I like titties. You like, what, you know, I get it. And like, if I were a journalist, I would want to sit down with Sanderson and be like, you know, how do you navigate that as a person who is taught this by the church? And like, do you have any qualms with how the church talks about these things? Like, now in 2023, where are you at with this? Like, that's what I would have done. I wish Jason would have done that. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say. Let me know your comments down below. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Hi, it's me, Trashcan Rachel, and my new favorite shirt says "Ban the Fascists, Save the Book." I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons. And those are Allie, Amanda, Ashley, Chris, Claire, Des Roberts, Emperor's New Blues, Eric, Harley, Jack and Jill, John E, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Kelly K, Quinn, Lex, Lula, Molly, Mrs. Kittybug, Witch Bitch, Rain, SJ, Samar, Scarlett, Shiny, Sierra, Tori, and Zachary. Thank you all so much for being a friend. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Search Marks patrons, and those are AM Angel, Aiden, Alexander, Alicia, Amanda, Amanda B, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ava, BB, Blythe, Ray, Bryn, Caitlin, Carlin, Catherine, Kathy, Celia, Cheyenne, Chris, CJ, Corwin, Darren, Deandra, Deborah, Diet Goth, Dorian, Douglas, Evie, Eden, Elise, Elia, Ember, Emily, Faith, Grace, Gracie, Hannah C, Hannah T, Horror Goose, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM, Jay is on Olympus, JT, Jen with 2 N's, Jenny, Jillian, Jules, Kaylee, Katya, Keely, Kelsey, Kylie, L. Lindbergh, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lauren B, Library of Scars, Liz Cardigan, Luna Moth, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, Miriam, Moog, Morgan R, Moth, MXDS, James, Nat, Never, Nicole R, Nikki, Nyan Binary, Paige E, Paige P, Peggy Lou, Pixel Stars, Pierre Raytheon, Pocket, Quill, Rachel B, Raquel, Rat Sarah, Reba, Rebecca, Ren, Robin, Rowan, Other Rowan, Samantha, Sarah, Scarlett, Shanae, Shannon, Shayna, Sheena K, Sean, Stephanie, Steven, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tiana, Trashcan Teddy, Sev, Writer A, and Yesenia. Thank you all so much for being a friend.